Yo, what's up guys? So today we are gonna see, what if Naruto had the sealing knowledge of his father, along with a bloodline that will allow him to become the Titan of Defense, Naruto x Harem, Part 3. Hope you'll enjoy this video. So before we start, go check out the author of this fanfic, Twin Silver Dragon, link is in the description, and also subscribe to my channel, and like this video. Let's begin the video. Jiraiya and Tsunade sat in Sarutobi's office fuming. Shizen was quietly sitting on a couch with Taunton in her arms staring at her master with worry in her eyes. Once they had all arrived, via towed carriage, they had made a beeline for the Hokage's office. The two women had met Jiraiya about a day ago, and had realized they needed to go faster if they wanted to be there by the next day, hence the Gamabunta summon. Now, they were waiting on Sarutobi to enter. He had apparently been needed at a short council meeting just a few moments ago, and had yet to return. To clarify, Tsunade received her letter from Sarutobi telling her that Naruto was alive. After the Kyuubi attack, she had left several hours before the declaration of the Jinchuriki, so she had never heard that news. She had assumed Naruto's and Kushina's deaths when she couldn't find them amongst the rubble of the hospital, and had promptly fled, never to look back. Jiraiya, however, had been a trickier opponent. The Sandaime had lied to the Toad Sannin, and told him that the Yondaime had used a random orphan since the hospital had collapsed on his son and wife. Luckily, Jiraiya had been so depressed over Yondaime's death that he hadn't bothered to take a second look at Naruto, and he had immersed himself in his research and his spy network, so he hadn't run into the young Jinchuriki. Soon the doors opened to reveal a Hokage. Both the Sannin had to take a second to acquaint themselves with their sensei. They had noticed his deteriorating will of fire before his retirement, but to see it burning so brightly forced them to remember that this wasn't the kind old man that he had been during Minato's reign as Hokage. This was Kamino Shinobi, the man who led Konoha through 2 wars, and one, not to mention the man who trained one of the world's greatest shinobi teams. By the time they had refocused on him, he had sat down and waved the ANBU in the room off before activating the security seal Naruto had been kind enough to install for the old man, actually better than the Yondaimes. He sighed and looked at his students. Before this gets ugly, know that Naruto already knows of his heritage, he said. Both of them looked shocked until Tsunade rounded on her sensei. Why didn't you tell us he was alive? She asked, her anger just barely under control. Sarutobi sighed. Naruto's heritage needed to be kept a secret. If you had known, you would have tried to take care of him, and that would have brought not only your enemies, but Minato's and Kushina's as well, he explained. Naruto may have forgiven him, but he knew his students wouldn't be so kind. Both Sannin were quiet for a moment, taking in the information. You still had no right to hide it from us, sensei. You should have told us. Even if Jiraiya had his spy network, I could have protected him, even against those enemies. Anything is better than being alone for a Jinchuriki, Tsunade said. Sarutobi frowned. So I was to allow you to take Naruto and run around Fire Country, completely unprotected, save you? I think not. The council would have ripped me to shreds, and you would have been hunted down, Sarutobi said loudly. Besides that, forcing Naruto to grow up on the move, never knowing stability or his home? That is almost as bad, the aged Hokage roared. Jiraiya frowned. That is still no excuse for lying to us, sensei. Who gave you the right to hide Naruto from us, his family? He asked with disappointment in his voice. Sarutobi sighed in frustration. I am Hokage. I was doing what I believed to be correct. Hindsight is 20/20, and I am not going to debate my actions with you now, he stated. He had already been grilled by his adoptive grandson, and he was tired from last week. Tsunade slammed her hands down on the desk, covering up the opening of the door. Hokage my ass. You are going to answer. She never got to finish because she found herself mute. I'd appreciate it if you didn't yell at my Aji-san, Oba-san, Naruto stated calmly, as he stood behind them, a chakra seal, a seal he made from his chakra, glowing brightly in the air. The occupants of the room, sans the Hokage, were shell-shocked. They had not been informed of his abilities. I'm going to drop this seal, and you are going to be quiet until Aji-san has reapplied the security seal. Understand? He asked coldly. The 3 people and 1 pig nodded their heads. Naruto nodded, and the seal faded away. Sarutobi chuckled as he reactivated the seal. That was a rather nifty seal, Naruto-kun, and thank you for the assist, he said smiling. Naruto shook his head. I'm the only one who gets to grill you on your bad decisions, Aji-san. Suddenly his eyes took an evil glint. Besides, I'm still not finished getting you back from my forgiveness complex, he said. Sarutobi turned ashen. Whatever do you mean? He asked nervously. Naruto chuckled darkly. You know what I mean, Aji-san. Suddenly the atmosphere became less ominous. But that's not why I'm here. I heard of the Sannin coming back, and your ANBU met me on my way here. So, why did Jiraiya ask me to come meet you? He asked with a raised eye. By this time, the other people, Squeal and Pig Squeal, had regained their wits, but had opted to keep silent for now. Sarutobi sighed, and thought for a moment before saying, "The Shinobi Council asked me for information about your little show against Danzo the other day." Naruto's eyes darkened. "Didn't you just get them in line?" I hope Naruto didn't get to finish, as Sarutobi cut him off. "They only asked Naruto-kun. Still, they do have some rights, as clans. I wanted to know if you would be so kind as to give us a true showing of your abilities. I am asking for this, not the council. It is for their benefit, as well, but that is a moot point," he said. Naruto closed his eyes and sighed. "I can do that. However, I refuse to show all of my bloodline. Showing its weaknesses is just plain stupid. As a reference, I could take down a mid to high level Chunin with some difficulty. Anything Jounin or higher, and I would have to prepare for a specific opponent," Naruto said. Sarutobi nodded. "Thank you. At the same time, would you like to release your heritage to the Shinobi Council? Most of them are on your side. The only thing I could see them asking is for you to have the CRA," he stated. Naruto thought again before smiling softly. "Yes, that will be fine. However, I would like the public announcement to wait until after I am Jounin level," Naruto said. Sarutobi smiled and nodded. "A sound plan, Naruto-kun." He eyed his students. "Since that is out of the way, allow me to introduce your godparents, Tsunade Senju and Jiraiya. I believe we have already spoken about the reasons for them not being here," he said. Naruto nodded and turned to them. "Understand something right now, I'm not a very trusting person, and you have missed out on much in my life. This earned frowns from both adults, however, that was not of your own volition, so I may yet forgive you. Thank the old man for that," he said while muttering something about scheming old men. He shook his head, as smiles appeared on their faces. "In any case, I am currently engaged to Hana Inuzuka, Enko Mitarashi, and Hikari Kitsune. While I haven't asked Enko, I plan to later, especially if I am under the CRA. For now, I wish to know what you will be teaching me." Luckily, Hikari was asleep, so he didn't have to deal with her squeals of joy. The adults looked stunned, however Shizen was the first to recover. "Why would you ask that?" she asked. Naruto looked at her with a raised eyebrow. "I have raised myself. I don't need godparents in that respect. I have a rather lucrative seals business, and have no need for money with my inheritance or a place to live. In short, I asked because that is the only thing that they currently have to offer me that I find useful. Besides, I spend most of my time training, so that is the quickest way to gain my trust," he stated simply. Tsunade and Jiraiya looked at one another, and Jiraiya sighed. "I'll go first," he said, raising his hand. "I can teach you Rasengan and Toad summoning, like your dad. I have a few other jutsu and abilities I'd be happy to teach you, but some of them depend on your elemental affinity," he said. Naruto shook his head. "Sounds like you're not very helpful," he said sadly. Jiraiya was about to open his mouth when he noticed the swirling ball of chakra in Naruto's hand. "I mastered it a few days ago. I can make it in under 2 seconds. Toads don't really interest me. I'll keep my options open, but we will see. I think Yamato-sensei was planning on finding that out later this week," he said. How long did it take you? And how did you know how to do it?" Jiraiya asked. Naruto sighed and explained the seal Minato put on him. Everyone, sans the Sandaime, was very impressed with that. "I see. I'll try and help you with whatever I can. I was also planning on helping you to access the Kyuubi's," he said before being cut off. "No, I will not use the Kyuubi's chakra," Naruto said, glaring at the toad Sannin. Jiraiya looked at Naruto with surprise in his eyes. "No? Boy, that's ridiculous. You have unlimited chakra at your disposal, and you don't want to," he said, once again being cut off. "Its chakra is toxic to my body. I cannot control myself when in a tailed state, and it would take years of work and experience to control it, and I doubt I have that kind of time before enemies start coming after me. Kyuubi's chakra is the last resort," he stated clearly, obviously keeping his cool whilst not mentioning Hikari's status. Jiraiya frowned, but the glares from Sarutobi and Naruto were enough to keep him quiet. Tsunade sighed. "My turn. I can teach you advanced chakra control, and maybe medical if you prove apt for them, but I doubt you will be able to use my super strength. I don't know much about elemental manipulation, but I do have an earth affinity. Whatever I can do to help, I'll be happy to do," she said sadly. Naruto sighed and closed his eyes. "I can use the chakra control training very much. I doubt I'll be able to use healing jutsu though. Maybe you could teach that to one of my fiancés? Hana might be a good choice because she is Inuzuka's head vet," he stated. Tsunade nodded, and her eyes brightened at that prospect. Suddenly Naruto smirked. "Now, I have a present for the old man. He's been Hokage for too long, and Konohamaru needs more time with his grandpa." Everyone looked confused. You have a choice. One of you must be the next Hokage. They both opened their mouths, but Naruto glared at them, and they shut up. I need someone sympathetic to me, and Konoha needs someone with an iron grip. Danzo has fled, Kakashi is too damn lazy, Guy is shudders, don't even ask. That leaves only you two. Duke it out, rock paper scissors, he'll have sags with one another for all I care, just choose, he said. That last comment made Tsunade turn bright red, and Jiraiya passed out. Shizen was red with embarrassment, while Sarutobi was giggling quietly. Tsunade looked around, and sighed, can we have a little time to think about it? This place still holds some bad memories for me, and the pervert, she said. Naruto nodded, that's fine. Since you're awake, when do you want to start training? He asked, knowing his sensei was still busy with the whole Danzo debacle. Tsunade smirked devilishly. Right now, Gaki, meet me at training ground 10, she said before disappearing, along with Shizen and Tantan. Naruto sighed, and shook his head. He waved to Sarutobi before disappearing. Sarutobi chuckled, and made 3 Kage Bunshins to handle the paperwork, and pulled out his Aika. He started giggling perversely until his eyes widened in horror, and he screamed out, damn you Naruto Uzumaki. Naruto had switched his porn with Yaoi, training ground 10. Naruto chuckled, as he heard the scream, and Swanda looked at him with a raised eyebrow. Switched his porn with Yaoi, Naruto answered. Tsunade smirked while Shizen giggled. That'll teach the old man to keep secrets from me, he said with a smirk. Tsunade shook her head. In any case, you need to tell me the extent of your training so we don't have to review what you already know, she said, as Tantan and Shizen sat down on the side. Naruto nodded. Well, Obachan, he said, getting a twitch from his Daibwa, godmother, I can do both tree and water walking for 2 hours without being winded. I can fight on both surfaces with any part of my body. That's all the chakra exercises I know, he said. Tsunade nodded. That's a very good start, Gaki. Actually, most jounin don't train in those techniques quite that extensively. You have pretty good control, probably mid-high jounin. If you want better than that, however, you are going to need specialized chakra control methods because of your enormous reserves, she said, getting a nod from Jenin. I think the best way to progress would be to learn how to extend your chakra from your body and control it. The leaf balancing exercise that all academy students do is a very low form of this, same with all chakra control really. However, I'm thinking more along the lines of a small boulder or weights. Instead of keeping it attached to your body, you must learn to keep it at least 5 inches from your body, and to resist gravity as well. Understand? She asked. Naruto nodded. So I'll be applying large amounts of chakra, and creating a sort of force field around the boulder to hold it afloat. Too much chakra, or too little, and the field will fluctuate, and fail, he said. Tsunade nodded, and punched the ground, making several different sized boulders for Naruto to use. She smirked, get to work Gaki, and no slacking off. Naruto chuckled, and approached one of the smaller boulders. This was gonna be fun. Later that week, training ground 10, Naruto smiled, as his sensei sunshine into the area. After the whole Danzo deal, he had been meaning to tell his team more of his abilities, and Ino about his tenant. How she never caught on to her father's prodding about his mental status he never knew. He had honestly liked Yamato from the moment he had met him. He simply hadn't trusted him because he knew of his allegiance to Konoha. Shino, well, of course he trusted his only friend amongst the rookie 9. Ohio sensei, Naruto said happily. Yamato smiled. Ohio Naruto-kun. I'm happy to see everyone here. I apologize for being unable to teach you this past week, but I'm sure you have all heard of Danzo Shimura's traitorous actions, he said. Getting nods from his 3 students, he continued, most of the jounin and ANBU Corps were sent out after him, or on higher missions, for the week before being recalled. But enough of that, you have all progressed tremendously, and I have decided it's time to learn your elemental affinities, and to, hopefully, teach you some jutsu that will aid you in future missions, he said with a smile. Naruto raised an eyebrow. Does that mean we aren't going to be working on elemental manipulation? He asked curiously. Yamato frowned. You may be advanced, but you're not quite that advanced, Naruto. It will simply help you determine your particular jutsus. Shino, I know you can't use very many, because of your hive, so I will try to find some less chakra intensive when we find out your affinity, he said, answering both students' questions, although Shino's was unanswered. He had to admit, although he didn't want to teach, these kids had grown on him. Naruto nodded. That's fine, sensei. Around 11 o'clock later today, there's going to be an ANBU summoning me to the council chambers. I wish to have you all accompany me, he said, shocking Ino and Yamato. Shino simply nodded. Ino looked at him warily. Why would you want us there? You haven't even tried to be nice to me or sensei since we got assigned teams, she asked/shouted, as she had finally had enough of all his secrets. Naruto eyed her. You mean you still haven't figured it out? I knew you were a fangirl, but I thought you had more common sense than this, he said. Yamato decided to keep quiet and find out where he was going with this. Ino gawked at him. Figured out what? That you don't want to be here? That you hate us? She half screamed at him. Naruto sighed. I never hated you. I simply didn't trust you, still don't. However, you are my team, and you need to know more of my abilities if we are to work together, he answered. Ino frowned. Why don't you trust us? What did we ever do? She didn't get to finish, as Naruto glared at her with a slight amount of ki, shutting her up. You are here to keep me under control, Ino. Think about it. Sasuke's team is an assault and tracking team. Sakura's team is an ambush and infiltration team. What area would our team be suited for? Your only technique is your mind control. My techniques could make me a one-man army, and Shino can siphon off Chakra. Our abilities don't flow together as well as the others. Yamato-sensei can use Mokuton techniques. Shino's bugs can eat Yuki, and you are an expert in the human mind, as that is what your clan specializes in. Please tell me you aren't that dense, he said, exasperated. Ino was a little taken aback by Naruto's tone, and silently thought about it. Suddenly, she shook her head. The only conclusion I can come to is that you would be a demon and, like you said, we are here to control you. But that doesn't make any sense. You may be annoying and rude, but you aren't anything like a demon, she said. Hey, she knew he was a jerk, but she didn't believe him to be evil. Naruto chuckled. I'm glad you feel that way. I'll explain it to you if you want, he said with a smirk. After a nod from his female teammate, he sighed. What I'm about to tell you is an S-rank secret, and you can be put to death if you reveal this secret without my, or the Hokage's, approval. Do you understand? He asked. She cocked her head to the side. If it's top secret, why do you know about it, and are exempt? She asked. Naruto sighed again. It concerns me, Ino. Do you still wish to know? He asked. She was silent for a moment before nodding again. Good. Now you know the story of the Kyuubi? That's a lie. The Yondaime Hokage could not kill the Kyuubi, no human can. He instead sealed it into a newborn baby, born October 10th. My birthday, he said. Ino looked shocked. She didn't need it spelled out for her. Naruto had the Kyuubi sealed inside his body. She was silent for a good 3 minutes before she looked at Naruto with sad eyes. I am sorry. I didn't even realize something was wrong. I just assumed you didn't like us, she said loudly. Naruto chuckled. I'll take that, as I don't believe you are the Kyuubi, he said, smirking. She blushed slightly. That's good. He looked to his sensei. I'm sorry for not trusting you, but I'm sure you understand. Yamato simply smiled and nodded. He hadn't liked spying on the boy, and Sarutobi had already informed the Jounin of Naruto's affirmation of loyalty to Konoha. Thank you. Now that that's out of the way, I think we should get to work. I'll explain my abilities a bit more at the meeting, and, as we get to know each other, you will learn more of my skill set, he said with a smile. Yamato nodded, Ino smiled, and Shino, well, he was happy to see his team come together, if the buzzing coming from him was any indication as to how he felt. Yamato clapped his hands together. Okay. Thank you for that, Naruto. I'm glad to see you more trusting, he said. Naruto smiled and nodded, whilst Yamato pulled out 3 slips of paper. Channel your chakra into this. If it burns, you're fired. If it crinkles, you're lightning. If it gets wet, you're water. If it splits in half, you're wind. And if it crumbles to dust, you're earth, he said, as he handed the papers to the. Ino smiled and poured chakra into her slip, causing it to become wet. Water, good Ino. Water is a very defensive element, and will offset your family techniques nicely, Yamato said. Shino nodded to his sensei, and his slip crumbled to dust. Earth, a very versatile element of Shino. Luckily, most earth jutsu are manipulated, and don't take as much chakra, Yamato said. Naruto smirked, and put chakra into his slip, causing a rather interesting reaction. First, the slip split in 2, but the sides that were split could easily cut a man's finger off, as they were so sharp. Second, the right side of the slip crinkled so much it was hardly larger than a pebble. Lastly, the left side of his slip became slightly damp. Hell, you had to be holding it to tell the difference. Meaning it's a very light affinity to water. Yamato looked surprised. Well, a dual affinity for wind, and lightning with a slight affinity for water. That is extremely rare. Unfortunately, Naruto, I do not have any lightning or wind jutsu, as I am a water and earth type, Yamato said sadly. Naruto just nodded. That's fine, sensei. If you could teach me a few defensive water jutsus, then that would be fine. After all, wind and lightning are mostly offensive jutsu, Naruto said, getting a nod from his sensei. That is a very good idea for Naruto. As a matter of fact, I'll teach you, and Ino Suetun, Sujin Hiki, Water Style, Water Wall, while my Kage Bunshin teaches Shino the Dotan, Doria Hiki, Earth Style, Earth Wall, so you will all have, at least, a defensive jutsu in your repertoire, Yamato said, gaining smiles from Ino and Naruto, and a nod from Shino. Alright then, let's get to work, Yamato said happily. It would seem his team was beginning to come together. Council room, 10:30 a.m. same day. The clan heads were assembled, and awaiting their Hokage, and his students. They had asked the Hokage for information regarding one Naruto Uzumaki. It was obvious the boy had some rather interesting techniques, as evidenced by his strange appearance when those Root attacked him. They were content to wait, as the Hokage had informed them that Naruto was willing to give a show of his abilities, so they all had their own little niche to hold them over. Shikaku was playing shogi with Inoichi, Chuza was eating chips, Some was quietly conversing with Kuramaru, while Hayashi and Shibi were sitting quietly. The doors opened to reveal the very people they were waiting for. They all stood and bowed to the Hokage as he took his seat, with Jiraiya flanking him, and Tsunade taking her clan's seat. I am glad to see you all here. I know you have questions about Naruto-kun, and I will answer them to the best of my abilities until his appointed test time, Sarutobi said. The clan heads nodded in contentment, and Hayashi was the first to stand and voice his concerns. Uzumaki-san has displayed abilities far above his level in the academy. How does he explain this? He asked. Sarutobi frowned. It would seem that he did not feel safe, and chose to hide his abilities in fear of being persecuted even more than he already was. He answered with a rather sad tone. Hayashi nodded, content with this answer, while many of the council winced at the obvious affects the previous council had upon a child. Inoichi was the next to stand. Could you give us a brief overview of his abilities? I am especially interested in that strange form he showed when the Root attacked him. Sarutobi nodded. It would seem that Naruto-kun is an accomplished seal master. His speed and stealth are easily A and BU level. His taijutsu is estimated to be high chunin, while his is rather poor, and he can only break out of low chunin level. He has not, as yet, taken up a weapon, and his thrown weapons are said to be above average, Sarutobi said. Most clan heads nodded while Hayashi stood once again with a slight scowl on his face. While I will not refute his other skills, I highly doubt Uzumaki-san is a seal master. It takes years of work, and a true understanding of many theories to claim that status, he stated. Sarutobi sighed, but it was Jiraiya who spoke up. I can honestly say the brat has talent in the area. He showed me a few of the seals he sells and, just off of them, I can tell he's at least my level. A very high probability that he is better, Jiraiya stated, honestly proud of his godson. That threw the council members for a loop. Some stood this time, as the murmuring quieted down. You said the ones he sells? Which might that be? She asked, genuinely curious about her soon-to-be son-in-law. Hell, she saw the way Hana looked at him. Jiraiya smirked. Actually, they're rather complex, and one, in particular, has become rather popular amongst the kunoichi. He makes the advanced explosive tag, one-time privacy barrier, and the anti-rape seal, Jiraiya said, as he watched the clan heads' jaws drop. If they had been shocked before, they were breaking the record for lowest jaw drop of the century. Well, all except Hayashi and Shibi, who had raised eyebrows, but that was their version of jaw drops anyways. Tsunade whistled. I knew the brat was good, but even I would like one of the anti-rape seals. It's not a save-all, but damn if it hasn't cut down rapes by half, she said. Sarutobi cleared his throat, and everyone turned their gazes to him. I have already ordered Nico to bring Naruto, and his team should he wish for it, to the training ground behind the Hokage monument at 11. This will be the ideal place to test him, as it holds many different areas, including a small river, desert, swamp, and several large boulders. Before we break, however, I wish to know of any clan that stands behind him at this time, Sarutobi said, fishing for support for what he planned to do to the young man. Surprisingly, Shibi Aburame was the first to stand. The Aburames will support Naruto Uzumaki. We understand his burden, and wish him no harm from it. My son, Shino, has spoken well of him, and it would be our honor to assist the hero of this village. He started before sitting back down. Many were surprised but kept quiet. Some barked out a laugh, and Inuzuka's stand behind him 100%. He's got our support in anything he does. Pup's always a blast to see around town, she said happily. Tsunade stood, the Senju stood behind him. Even if I am the last, I will support him, she said, knowing of Sarutobi's plan, and keeping her relationship with him a secret for now. Sarutobi looked to the other clan heads, who all agreed to see more of his abilities before endorsing him. Hayashi was the most resistant. I see, thank you, Inuzuka-san, Aburame-san, Tsunade. Now, let us head to the training ground, he said, as he disappeared, followed closely by the rest of the council. Training Ground 0:11 a.m. The clan heads arrived just in time to see Team 10 arrive, as well. Sarutobi smiled, and snapped his fingers, causing 3 ANBU to appear. Naruto-kun. These 3 ANBU are Bear, Nico, and Dragon. Bear is a Taijutsu specialist, Nico is a Kenjutsu specialist, who will be using 2 different blades. I personally chose to test your bloodline, and Dragon is a ninjutsu specialist. While I don't expect you to reveal all of your abilities, I would appreciate an accurate showing of your best skills, he told the genin. Naruto nodded, as the group moved off to the side, and Bear stood in front of him. I understand, Aji-san. If the council wishes it when the test is over, I can demonstrate a few of my seals, since I know they are curious about them, he asked. Sarutobi nodded. That sounds good. I will be the referee for these matches. You will stop when I say so, or when your opponent is unconscious. Both fighters ready? He asked, getting a nod from the ANBU, and genin. He smiled, and brought his hand up, and then back down yelling, Hajime. Naruto simply stood in his Aiken stance, and waited for the ANBU to make a move. He didn't drop his resistance seal, which was currently at level 7, so he was at about low to mid Chunin speed. Bear decided he had waited long enough, and quickly went on the offensive at a low Jounin speed. He threw a right punch that Naruto easily dodged to the right, and brought his elbow towards the back of Bear's head. Bear wasn't an ANBU for nothing, and easily rolled forward before spinning, and launching a ferocious flurry of strikes at the whiskered teen. Naruto skillfully evaded or redirected his strikes, and even struck back a few times, earning grunts from the ANBU member. This surprised many of the onlookers. It was obvious that the fight could put many, and quite a few Jounin, to shame. While Naruto didn't hit many times, the experienced shinobi noticed, and pointed out, that Naruto's style was a reactionary style, meaning his hits were decisive, and he himself was rarely damaged. When Bear realized he couldn't break the kid's defense, he jumped back, panting slightly. Hokage-sama. I would put him at a high Chunin level. With real experience, easily Jounin. It is obvious he had help with his style, he said, as the Hokage nodded in agreement. He turned back to Naruto. That is a dangerous and effective style of Uzumaki-san. I am honored to have fought it, he said. What few knew was that Bear was an avid follower of many taijutsu styles, knowing almost as many as Meido-gai, although he could not perform them, and to fight a brand new style was a true treat to the taijutsu lover. Naruto smiled, and dropped out of his stance before bowing to the ANBU. It was my pleasure. Should you wish for a match, seek me out. I usually hang out around Training Ground 44, he said, shocking many of the clan heads. Bear nodded, and Sarutobi smiled. Good form, you too. Dragon, could you step into the ring next, please? We will test his bloodline last, Sarutobi said, getting a nod from the dragon-masked ANBU. Naruto smirked, and said, so would you like the honors or shall I? He asked the masked ANBU. The spectators couldn't see it, but Dragon smirked. He quickly ran through hand seals, and roared out Katon, Gakyaku no Jutsu, fire release, great fireball technique, unleashing a flaming ball of fire at his opponent. Naruto smirked, and quickly ran through some seals before announcing his newest jutsu, Suetun, Suijin Hiki, water release, water wall technique, and a wall of water flowed from the nearby river, and formed up in front of Naruto. While the full version of this technique went all around the user, Naruto had only accomplished making the water form in front of him for now. Pretty good for half a day's work. The two volatile jutsu clashed, and a thin steam formed around Naruto. Dragon stared into the steam, attempting to find his opponent when he heard, Raitun, Raikyu, lightning release, lightning ball, and had to dodge a ball of lightning coming out of the steam. He eyed the ball, as it slammed into a tree, and burst into a small electrical storm. He turned back to Naruto just in time to see him charging another Raikyu. He quickly ran through some hand seals, and roared out Doton, Doria Hiki, earth release, earth wall, just as Naruto threw his second ball forward. The lightning ball slammed into the wall, and nearly tore through it, but Dragon wasn't a ninjutsu specialist for nothing, and the wall held. Not wanting to give Naruto another shot, Dragon ran through some more seals, and placed his hand on the wall, and said Doton, Doriyuso, earth release, rising earth spears, and several earth kunai sprang from the wall, and shot straight for Naruto. Naruto quickly ran through his jutsu repertoire, and mentally cursed. He stared at the oncoming kunai, and sighed before Kawarimi ing out of the way. The kunai impacted a log, and Naruto jumped back into the field before looking at the Hokage. Sarutobi noticed, and stepped forward. That's enough, Dragon, your assessment please, he said. Bear nodded, and relaxed. He is easily Chunin level if he can use elemental jutsu. Using two different ones? I'd place him at Jounin when his jutsu pool expands, he stated. Sarutobi nodded. Thank you, dragon. I concur, as well. He looked to Nico, and handed her a scroll. Use the first one until it breaks, and then the second. It is chakra conductive, he said, as the A and BU nodded to him. The clan heads were quietly conversing, the Ino Shikucho trio already having decided to give their support to the blonde. Hayashi was the only one who still refused to do so. His team was impressed, Ino especially, but kept quiet. Naruto stood still, as Nico made her way across from him, and unsealed both the katanas. She quickly sheathed the secondary blade on her back, and took her kenjutsu stance. Sarutobi looked at Naruto. I want you to test your bloodline against these blades. Both are of high quality, although only the second is chakra conducting. After that, please give us a description of your bloodline, Sarutobi said, getting a nod from the blonde-haired genin. Naruto smiled at Nico. Hey Nico-ne-chan. Come at me with all you got or you won't even get a scratch on me, he said, as his body shifted to the form they had seen in the council chambers. His skin had a light silvery grayish tone, and he simply stood there staring at Nico. Well, come on, I don't have all day, he said with a smirk. Nico shook her head, and charged forward, her blade singing, as it split the wind. She quickly made 10 strikes on Naruto's skin, only to jump back, and notice he had no wounds, and there were cracks in the blade. Everyone watched in amazement, as the blade suddenly shattered, and dropped to the floor in pieces. Impressive, Nico-ne-chan. Most blades just bend or shatter. For it to crack first speaks immensely of its forging, and your skill to make sure the same piece of the blade was not stressed more than once, he said. He had tested out his bloodline against Anko before, not that they knew that. Nico smirked behind her mask, as she drew the second katana from its sheath. Impressive bloodline, Naruto-san. I'm going to step it up a notch. Don't bleed out on me, Kay? She asked with a little sarcasm in her voice. Naruto chuckled, and his skin color became a more metallic gray. Wouldn't dream of it. Come at me with all you got, he said. You could feel Nico's smile, as she dashed forward with chakra in the blade. She stopped in front of him, and made the same slash as she had before. The effect was interesting. She could feel the blade grate against his skin, but it did not break the skin, nor did it overly strain the blade. She knew if she hit him enough times, the blade would shatter, but that would take a while. Her affinity was water, so she couldn't channel that into the blade, and decided to jump back before nodding to the Hokage, and explaining what she felt. Naruto nodded at her explanation, and let his bloodline drop. Sarutobi turned to him, and waved a hand. Alright then. What Nico-ne-chan said is true. Chakra-enhanced blades are very likely to annoy me, but they will eventually shatter. All regular blades shatter almost instantaneously against my bloodline. However, I do need to pump more chakra into my skin in order to keep chakra blades from affecting me. He didn't want to give away all of his weaknesses. That was just stupid. Hayashi frowned, as if reading his thoughts. Is that all your bloodline can do, and what are its weaknesses? He asked. Naruto scowled. No, that's not all it can do, and why in the 9 hells would I give you my weaknesses? Would you tell me of the Byakugan's weaknesses? He asked accusingly. Hayashi's face contorted into rage. How dare you? No one can ask a clan for its secrets. I hope he doesn't finish. Enough, roared Sarutobi. Naruto has a point. Everyone is entitled to some secrets. Be happy he allowed us to see what skills he has. He leveled a glare at Hayashi, and you will do nothing to him. He obviously said that to prove a point, and it worked, he said, as he noticed the other clans nodding their heads at his wisdom. Hayashi scowled. Fine. However, he will never have the Hyuga's support. Despite his abilities, he is a time bomb waiting to happen. One strong emotion, and the seal could falter, he stated. Sarutobi glared at him, and shook his head. Regardless of your fears, Naruto is a shinobi of this village, and he is entitled to his secrets to protect himself. You should consider yourself lucky though. Naruto-kun informed his teammate of his burden today, otherwise the Hyuga would have been forced to find a new clan head, he said. Hayashi simply continued to scowl, but waited to be dismissed. Sarutobi sighed. Naruto-kun, would you still like to give us a demonstration of your seals? He asked. Naruto nodded, and said, Everyone stand back. I don't want you to get hit by these two, he said, and everyone stood off to the side, as he aimed at a tree. His hand became a blur, and everyone watched in fascination, as a seal took shape in the air. Heido no Yan, Byakurai. Demon Arts No. 4, White Lightning, Naruto said, as he touched the completed seal. Everyone was amazed to see a white lightning bolt burst forth, and slam into the tree, creating a smoking hole in the center. Naruto smirked, as he saw everyone's jaw drop. That is my favorite one actually, although I still need to practice writing it so I can use it faster. I have one more I wish to show you, he said, gaining a nod from the still surprised Sannin. His finger came up again, and quickly began writing another seal, this one taking a full 15 seconds longer to make. No Satyayatsu, Kongo Baku, Demon Arts number 34, Adamantine Blast, Naruto intoned, as he touched the seal, and a blast of red, with a black center, emerged from the seal, and incinerated the tree that the Byakurai had torn right through. Ino whistled, and said, "That's impressive, Naruto." There were murmurs of agreement throughout the crowd. Sarutobi smiled, "Thank you, Naruto-kun. Please wait in my office, I should be there shortly." Team 10, you are dismissed, thank you for attending. Council, please return to the chambers, we have one last thing to discuss, he said, and watched, as Yamato took his students, minus Naruto, away. The rest of the group soon followed, and the aged Hokage sighed before gathering himself. There was one last battle to be fought. Hokage office, noon. Naruto sat in a chair in front of the Hokage's desk, as Sannin and his students entered. He smiled at them and said, "So, did it work?" he asked. His answer was a scroll to his face. Sarutobi chuckled, as he sat down, like a charm. "After that display, only Hayashi refused to ask you to undergo the CRA, although he didn't refute you being the son of Minato. You are going to wait until you are promoted to Chunin until you take his name correctly?" he asked. Naruto nodded. "I should be strong enough by then. Thanks again, Aji-san, I'll see you around," he said before he disappeared in his shunshin. Tsunade shook her head, just as impatient as they were. She said, smiling. Sarutobi nodded. "So, have you two decided?" he asked. The two Sannin looked at one another before nodding. Tsunade smirked softly. "I'll do it. Dan and Nawaki would love to know I achieved their dream for them," she said with a smile. The two men in the room smiled at her. She would make a great Hokage. Time skip, 2 weeks, Naruto's lab. The girls and Naruto were all assembled by Amaterasu. The first meeting between Hana and Amaterasu had been interesting to say the least. Let's just say that Hana pretty much had to bow to Amaterasu for a week, causing much teasing between Hikari, Anko, and Hana. However, she was now able to control herself, and the two had hit it off almost as much as Hikari and Amaterasu had. They didn't know what was going on, but it seemed to be important to their friend. There hadn't been any breakthroughs on Orochimaru, so this had to do with something other than that. When she walked into the small living room and sat down at the table, they could see she was tense. "What's wrong, Ami-chan?" Hikari asked. She sighed. "I have a confession to make. I didn't come here just to search for Orochimaru. Kami ordered me to find someone who could become the champion of the Kamis, the chosen of Anjuin. One," she said. Everyone looked bewildered, except Hikari, who looked stunned. "You're looking for someone to be charged with a quest from all the Kamis? That hasn't happened since the advent of mankind," she yelled. Amaterasu nodded. "I know, but don't worry about that. I called you here because I informed them of my choice 3 weeks ago, and today my choice has been chosen to take the immortality trials," she said. Hikari paled at that. "No one has passed those trials since Ryujin. Who is your—" She didn't get to finish, as they all felt a pull from another plane. Same time, Kami's court. The group of people all arrived, and immediately dropped into fighting stances while Hikari paled again. Kami stood, her long white hair trailing down her back. "Welcome to my court, Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, chosen of the Anjuin," she said. Naruto stood still. Well, that explained who Amaterasu's choice was. Naruto was in a clearing in the Forest of Death. He was practicing drawing the seals for his Heido, way of destruction or demon art, and Bakudo, way of binding, as he called them. He didn't actually activate them, but simply wanted to get certain seals drawn in less than 5 seconds. He had been practicing for about 3 hours, and it was beginning to get late. Little did he know, several pairs of eyes were stalking him. Naruto was drawing another seal when he was abruptly interrupted by 3 large orange and black blurs. Naruto rolled with the blues, as they growled, and latched onto him. One set of eyes widened, and the owner tensed. Naruto came to a stop with 3 rather large tiger cubs playfully growling at him, as their tails swished in amusement. Naruto chuckled aloud. Well, you 3 have certainly grown," he commented, getting what appeared to be smirks from the cubs. They were easily the size of a small pony, each. One was on his chest, the other 2 each had a paw next to the center one, again on his chest, and they all seemed to share a look before Naruto found himself in another catfight. A low growling could be heard from the underbrush, and a tiger the size of a horse walked into the clearing, seemingly smiling at her cubs playing with Naruto. The hidden goddess relaxed, and even smiled, as she watched Naruto, whom she considered to be far more mature than most gods, be little more than a kid, even if only for a while. She knew his childhood, and was glad to see he hadn't lost all of his innocence. She giggled slightly, as she watched the elder tiger bat her children away from Naruto, and glare at them to stop messing with him. Naruto chuckled, as he stood up. Now, They just wanted to have fun. You could let them play some more, couldn't you? He said to the big animal. Said tiger seemed to give Naruto a hell no. Look, as she started herding her cubs onwards. The cubs growled in disappointment, but moved away. Naruto shook his head, as they looked back at him. Listen to your Kasan now. I'll come play with you some other time, he said. The cubs seemed to brighten this, and they disappeared into the underbrush, heading for home. Amaterasu smiled, and jumped down. You handled that pretty well, Naruto-kun, she said. Naruto chuckled. Yeah, I train here so often that most of the animals just know to either avoid me or befriend me. Those cubs? I was there when their mom birthed them. I've played with them every time we run into one another, and the mother seems to like me, he said, smiling softly at remembering the birthing he witnessed. Amaterasu felt a warm glow in her chest. There was something heartwarming about seeing Naruto happy for once. Sure, he was happy around Hikari or Anko, but this was different. This was a happiness he had found, not one given to him by those that loved him. She smiled, and said, that is a magnificent thing to witness, Naruto-kun. It's wonderful that you can connect with the cubs. I'm glad you have such a good connection to nature. So many humans, ninja even, are out of touch with their instincts, and yet, you seem to be closer to nature than even some animals, she commented. Naruto rubbed his head sheepishly. Really? He asked. Amaterasu nodded. Yes, she said. A comfortable silence fell around the pair, until Amaterasu decided she would bring up why she was here in the first place. Naruto-kun? She asked, getting Naruto's attention. I wanted to ask you, why did you accept Hikari-chan's condition of marriage for your bloodline? I mean, she told me about the agreement, and all, but I don't know any human that would willingly agree so readily to marriage at age 10, she said. Naruto sighed, and sat down on a log nearby, offering her a seat next to him, which she graciously took. To be honest, first, I was already bonded with her for my life. Why not make it more enjoyable for the both of us? Second, at age 8 I knew I was a Jinchuriki. Even if a woman agreed to be with me, she would be scorned, and hated, as a demon whore, and I would never subject anyone to that. So, I pretty much resigned myself to never having a family, despite wanting one all my life. Amaterasu cringed at that logic, although it wasn't entirely false. Finally, he blushed here. I had seen her body, and well, I was attracted to her alright, he said, a little flustered. Amaterasu stared at him before giggling loudly, causing Naruto to blush harder and turn away from her. He whispered quietly, besides, I wanted to know what she saw in a worthless human like me. She froze at that, and stared at him in shock. Amaterasu's eyes suddenly became soft. You have to ask? She said, getting a slightly curious look from Naruto. Hikari had never outright come, and told him what she liked in him, so he was still curious, although he no longer thought of himself as worthless. You're loyal to a fault. You detest rapists, and see women as equal, or maybe even slightly higher than men. You could easily love 10 or more women, and still have enough heart to go around. And you survived hell on earth for years without any emotional support. If you aren't husband material, I don't know who is, she said, smiling. Naruto chuckled, but his eyes shone with unshed tears. Thanks, Ami-chan. I appreciate that. If there's anything I can do for you, let me know, okay? He said. Amaterasu giggled. Okay, she said, smiling. Suddenly Naruto found his head being pressed into 2 fleshy globes. You can take her out on a date. Kami knows she needs to stop being a prude and get laid, Hikari said from behind Naruto. Amaterasu flushed bright red and screeched, Hikari. Naruto was blushing as well, but Hikari just giggled and said, you didn't object, so that's a yes. Amaterasu started sputtering, and Naruto's grin suddenly outshone Hikari's. Say, there's a new restaurant opening in 2 weeks. I'll take you there, say 7 p.m.? He asked, getting a shocked look from both females, even as Hikari moved to stand in front of them. One from Hikari because she hadn't expected him to actually join in, and one from Amaterasu because she suddenly had that heartwarming feeling again. So, Amaterasu did the one thing her brain could think to do at the moment, nod her head yes. Naruto smiled brightly. Great. Dress well, I'll be sure to impress, he said before disappearing in a shunshin. Hikari blinked olishly, and Amaterasu just said, did I just agree to a date with your fiancé? Suddenly, Amaterasu had a bad feeling. She turned to see Hikari with a shit-eating grin on her face. She was suddenly glommed by the happy fox demon, as she yelled, welcome to the family. Amaterasu immediately pushed Hikari away. Oh look, I don't know about that, she said, gaining a rather sad look from Hikari. It's not that he isn't attractive or anything, but I just don't like rushing into things, okay? She said. Hikari nodded, fine. But she gained a foxy smirk. Naruto-kun will get you, she said sing-songily before she disappeared too. Amaterasu just shook her head, and sighed before she shunshined away, as well. Naruto's group stood still, as they registered Kami's words. Since I don't wish to explain all the gods' forms, I will explain the important ones here. Kami and Yami are twins, but Kami has white hair and eyes while Yami has black hair and eyes. Ryujin is about 5 feet 11 inches, and has silver hair and black eyes. He's mostly wearing black with a silver haori. Inari, just think of a red-headed mischievous person. Susanoo is as tall as Ryujin, and has cloudy gray hair, with electric blue eyes. The girls all snapped out of it, as Naruto sighed, and shook his head. Great. Even Ami-chan is joining in on pranking me now, he said, throwing his hands in the air. Hikari looked at Naruto, and deadpanned. If this is her idea of a prank, then she's even better than you, she said. Naruto's shoulders slumped down. Why can't things ever be easy? He asked with a sad, yet slightly teasing voice. Amaterasu gave him a guilty look, and went to her seat amongst the gods. The rest of the girls quickly took up supportive positions behind him. Ryujin chuckled, because if things were easy, it wouldn't be so much fun, he said. Naruto sighed, and looked at Kami. Okay, so what do you want? He asked, surprising most of the gods. Most humans would start bowing and begging forgiveness in front of Kami. Kami chuckled. Didn't Amaterasu explain? You are here to take the immortality trials, she said. Naruto shook his head. I knew that, but what do you want with me? Because I know that you would not offer immortality to just anyone, and I'm guessing there's certain reasons for you to allow me to take these trials, he said, eyeing Kami and Yami warily. Yami chuckled. You certainly are a perceptive one. I suppose it would be best to start at the beginning. Hikari-chan has already told you about Orochimaru. What she didn't know is that the curse marks are actually a bastardized version of the god's avatar mark, which is granted to certain individuals by a god. This mark allows a god to have a servant on Earth. However, there can only be a certain number of avatars on Earth at any given time. Since Orochimaru has been marking people, the god's marks have disappeared, meaning we have no power on Earth, she explained. Naruto nodded. Okay, so you have no power on Earth. But how does that affect me? He asked. Kami stepped in here. Currently, only Susanoo has an avatar mark left to give. Myself and Yami took an oath to never give marks because they could throw the whole world into chaos upon doing so. Normally, as Yami said, Orochimaru's mark would override a god's mark. However, only a god is supposed to be able to remove another avatar mark. This makes gods generally immune to marks unless they consciously accept the mark from another, she said. With me so far? She asked. Naruto nodded again. So Orochimaru, I'm assuming from his time, as Orochi no Yamada, is able to override your marks because he used to be immortal, and he is immune to a mark himself, he said. Kami nodded yes. However, you have done what is impossible for a human. You have removed a mark, even if it is the bastardized version combined with that strange toxin he uses, and this makes you very special. By Kami law, you are now considered to be among god status. However, we cannot allow such a thing, so we came up with the immortality trials, as a way to ensure that you can be allowed to join us, she said. Everyone was silent for a moment until Hana spoke up. So you mean the trials will make him a god? She asked in a subdued voice. Kami shook her head. Not in so many words. If he passes, he will be granted demigod status. This makes him immortal. Upon his death, he, and any of his wives/lovers that he wishes, would ascend to be under the command of the patron god who supports him in life. That is the case normally. However, since he can remove the marks, we have decided to make him specifically the demigod in charge of avatar marks. Essentially, he will be a lesser god upon his death, she explained. Enko whistled, impressive. I knew you were destined for great things, but godhood. Damn, I'm glad I'm with you now, she said, smirking at Naruto. Naruto smirked. Yeah. However, you still have yet to explain what my job would be while I'm alive, he stated. Yami chuckled again. Like I said, very perceptive. Since you can remove avatar marks, you will be immune to Orochimaru's ability to remove avatar marks, meaning that you can be an avatar, and your mark will not fade if Orochimaru attempts to mark another, she explained. Simply put, your job will be to, eventually, track down and kill Orochimaru. The avatar mark will simply be our way of supporting you, and giving you both help and maybe a few missions of our own, she stated, as Naruto nodded his head in acknowledgement. That is, assuming you pass the trials, she added. Naruto nodded. That's fine by me. Planning on killing Oro team anyways, he said before turning his gaze to Kami. So then let's get down to the nitty-gritty. What do these trials entail, and what will happen should I fail? He asked. Well, there will be a test for your honor and courage by Ryujin, she said, motioning to the silver-haired, black-eyed man who smirked ferally. A test for your intelligence and cunning by Inari, she continued, motioning to the red-haired and red-eyed man with a mischievous smile, and A Test of Your Heart to Determine If You Are Worthy of an Avatar Mark, by Tsunade. She finished motioning to the black-haired, stormy-eyed man next to Amaterasu, and Tsukuyomi, who stared at Naruto with piercing eyes. If you fail, you will probably die. However, if you live, your memory, and every mortal's, will be erased, and you will not remember this, she said. Naruto nodded. That is reasonable, he said before finding himself on the wrong end of 3 women's attempts to keep him from attempting the trials. He sighed, and glared at them, and they fell quiet. Look, I know you don't want me to risk it, but come on girls, immortality? How often does one get offered that? He said, gaining contemplative looks from his loves. He suddenly smirked foxily. Besides, that would be the biggest bitch slap to Oro team, he said with a chuckle. Amaterasu watched with sad eyes. She was actually rather attracted to the blonde boy. She wanted to wish him luck like that too, but she was slightly afraid of Hikari's wrath for choosing him for these trials in the first place. That, and she didn't want him to get hurt either. She decided to simply observe, and not ruin their moment. She only hoped that she could make it up to him, and them, later. Naruto stepped back, and comically shook his head fast before smiling broadly, and looking at Ryujin. When do we start? I gotta kick your ass first, right? He said. Ryujin smirked. My ass? Boy, you're gonna be sore when I'm done with you. As to your question, now, he said before both beings disappeared in a flash of silver. Unknown location, Ryujin, and Naruto. Naruto and Ryujin arrived, and Naruto immediately began to take in his surroundings. They were on a large white-tiled arena platform that was easily a mile wide. Naruto turned back to Ryujin, who smirked. Welcome to my personal playground, boy. Here, I control everything, he said. Naruto raised an eyebrow. How am I supposed to beat you if you control everything? He asked. Ryujin chuckled. Nobody ever said the test was to beat me. No, the test is set by me, and I don't feel like telling you what you have to do to pass. He started with his arms crossed. Naruto scowled at this, but thought for a moment before asking, okay then, what exactly will we be doing here? He asked, deciding not to run his mouth, and actually use his brain. Ryujin smirked. There's the Naruto I was looking for. Think before you speak or act, he said. He started to pace back and forth in front of Naruto. Let me explain the rules and stipulations to this test. First off, you're going to be fighting me until I tell you to stop. Secondly, taijutsu or weapons only. No thrown weapons, however, will be allowed to block my scimitars if I use them. The last, and most important rule, I have enabled you to reach the full potential your mind holds, he said, gaining a confused look from his blonde-haired opponent. Full potential my mind holds? What the heck does that mean? Naruto asked, thoroughly confused. Ryujin smirked again. I'll only give you a hint. Mind is more important here than body, he said. Naruto was still confused, but decided to just nod and drop into his Uruken back fist stance. Good, you're not wasting any time. Neither will I. He started before he blurred forward and slammed into Naruto's defenses like a bull. Naruto was hard-pressed to defend against the Silver Juggernaut, and he quickly decided that evading the Dragon God's attacks was the best course of action. He was able to somewhat stall Ryujin by doing this, but he couldn't hit the man to save his life. Unfortunately, his life was on the line, and he needed to find a way around the man's insane speed and style, or he would be in big trouble. Kami's court, same time. Kami had made a TV like a screen that allowed the gods and guests to view the fight. Several gods were betting on wins and losses, whilst Naruto's girls cheered him on. Amaterasu sat in her seat next to her sister and brother, Tsukuyomi and Tsunade respectively. She was cheering Naruto on, but quietly because of her involvement in this affair. She knew she should have mentioned the trials before they had happened, but she just hadn't wanted to make Naruto worry about something that he couldn't change. That, and trial contestants weren't supposed to know about their nomination until the trials themselves. She glanced at Hikari, who was loudly cheering Naruto on, and cringed. She would pay the price for not telling her friend about this. She sighed, and went back to silently cheering Naruto on. Over with the girls, Hana noticed Amaterasu's disposition, and frowned. She didn't like Amaterasu's secrecy about this, but she also didn't believe that she meant anything bad about it. She turned to Hikari. Hikari-chan, she said, gaining both Anko's and Hikari's attention. What should we do about Amaterasu? She asked. Hikari frowned. I don't like her keeping secrets from us like this. I suppose we will have to think of something, she replied. Anko smirked mean-like. I say we strap her down, and let Naruto-kun have his way with her. After we ride him, of course, she said. Hikari chuckled. That's a good punishment. However, I was thinking more along the lines of something permanent, she said with a foxy smirk. Suddenly Hana gained a grin that no one had seen before. You girls remember that she has a date set with him, huh? she said, getting nods from her fellow Naruto lovers. Well, how about we find out when their next date is, after that one because it's too soon, and get her all hot and bothered for like a week before the date. Hell, we could totally spike her food and stuff with aphrodisiacs. She will be so horny that she won't have any choice but to jump on Naruto-kun's bones. And since Hikari wanted something permanent, we got her to marry Naruto-kun because she slept with him, she said, smirking like Naruto did after a well-planned prank. Hikari's eyes brightened, and she quickly squealed and glommed Hana. Good one. Okay, so that's the plan? She asked, getting nods from her partners in torture. Okay. We will start after Naruto-kun passes these trials, she said. The three schemers smiled and turned back to the screen just in time to see Naruto smirk devilishly. Time warp. Before the Amaterasu plan, with Naruto. Naruto had spent the past 5 minutes trying to not get creamed by Ryujin. Ryujin, on the other hand, was getting bored and kept trying to get Naruto to step it up a notch. He threw another punch at Naruto and knocked him back before sighing in disappointment. What a waste. To think you're supposed to be the chosen of the Anjuin? He asked. He put a finger to his chin. Maybe I should offer to let Hikari be with a real man, he said. Naruto immediately rushed forward and tried to strike the dragon god. Ryujin easily redirected and avoided all of Naruto's strikes. Naruto growled and redoubled his efforts, going slightly faster. Ryujin smirked seeing this. Come on, stop trying to hit me, and hit me, he half yelled at Naruto. Yeah, I used a Matrix reference. Big whoop. Wanna fight about it? Ryujin suddenly found himself on the wrong end of a very fast and vicious assault from the Kyubi Jinchuriki, and ended up getting struck in the chest and flying back about 10 feet. Naruto stared in shock at his fist. I am not that strong. Wait a minute, he said, to reach the full potential my mind holds, and mind over body? Let's test it, he thought before he suddenly felt his foot become 10 times heavier than the rest of his body. Ryujin smirked and said, enough of the kiddie games. It's time to step up or die. Naruto watched as Ryujin disappeared, and a cloud of dust appeared around him in a circle. Like Lee's fight with Gaara, suddenly, everyone watched as a line of destruction raged towards Naruto. It was Ryujin, running so fast he busted up the arena. Naruto smirked devilishly, and Ryujin noticed Naruto's muscles expand and then shrink back down several times. Naruto swiftly threw a punch forward, and everyone watched in anticipation as his fist met with Ryujin's, and a crater appeared around the two combatants. Ryujin smirked. Seems you've figured it out. Let's see if you can keep up, he said before disappearing again. Naruto smirked right back. Oh, it's on, he roared, as he too disappeared. Kami's court, same time. Everyone was gaping, well except Kami and Yami. Cool, Anko suddenly shouted, as she watched Naruto start to fight with the dragon god. Hikari chuckled. Damn right. I knew he'd beat Ryujin's ass, she said, pumping her arm in support of her future mate. Kami chuckled as well. Indeed, he is quite the human, she said, smiling. There were several other comments made, mostly positive, although some gods were miffed at losing their bets. Several minutes later, however, Ryujin and a battered Naruto appeared in the court. Ryujin smirked and said, Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze has passed the test of courage and honor. Naruto looked at Ryujin with a curious expression. That didn't really test courage or honor. Why would you pass me without testing me for real? He asked. Ryujin chuckled. It may not have been a test in your eyes. However, I tested your courage when I told you that I controlled everything. Even though you asked how you could beat me, you never, once, entertained the thought that you would back down or run away. That shows tremendous courage. Your honor was tested with each strike of your fist against mine. I was able to see parts of your past, and I know you would never abandon your code of honor for anything less than your death. You passed my Naruto-san test, and I am honored to say so, he said, bowing slightly to the young man. Naruto bowed back. I enjoyed our fight. Thank you for the hint though, he replied. Ryujin smirked. No problem, Naruto. He turned and headed back to his seat, waving his hand in the air behind him. Pass the rest or I'll resurrect you just to throw you to your future mates, he said over his shoulder, causing Naruto to pale and nod furiously. Kami chuckled. I see you already understand just how dangerous a scorned woman can be. With good reason, she said with a smirk. Naruto just gave her a do you think I'm a moron look which caused Kami to laugh. She shook her head as her laughter died down and said, I believe it is time for Inari's challenge. Assuming Naruto-kun doesn't want to wait. Naruto nodded, and the mischievous-looking redhead suddenly appeared in front of him. Pleasure to meet you, Naruto. I've always been a fan of your pranks. Man, the looks on your victims' faces, priceless, he said, smiling the whole time. Naruto smiled broadly. Really? Well, I have this one prank I need to plan, he said. Inari's face practically glowed. Tell you what, kid, You pass my test, and I'll help you with that prank," he said, causing Hikari and Amaterasu to pale. Amaterasu stepped forward. "No, now let's not be hasty. Couldn't you just, I don't know, give him some secret only you know?" she said, desperately trying to keep Naruto from getting help from the only person who could possibly outdo the prank master from hell. Inari put a finger to his chin. You have a point. Okay, new deal. You can have my help with the prank, or the secret. You pass, and I'll even give you a hint to the secret," he said, smirking. Naruto nodded. "Done. When do we start?" he asked. Inari snapped his fingers, and Naruto felt re-energized. "Right now, prank master from hell. Oh, and try not to destroy all my playthings, will ya?" he said, as Naruto disappeared in a white flash, unknown location. Naruto blinked his eyes to rid himself of the spots in his vision, and looked around. All behind, and to the sides of him was a white plain. In front, a large wall that seemed to go on for miles with a single entrance that split several feet in. Naruto raised an eyebrow. "Well, guess that's where I gotta go," he said, as he walked into the maze. He had only taken about 10 steps in when it split to the right and left. Naruto looked down both corridors, and noticed they both curved again quite soon. He shrugged, and closed his eyes before spinning around 3 times, and walking forward to the right path. Naruto walked through many more twists and turns before he came across a large open plain. He was immediately on guard, and kept his senses alert, as he slowly walked forward, and kept his eyes peeled looking through the grass and around the area so he didn't get a nasty surprise. He noticed some movement in the grass, and tensed, waiting for something to happen. His eyes watched, as the grass kept parting closer and closer until a small white bunny rabbit hopped out, and looked at Naruto cutely. Naruto sighed. "Hello there, little one. You don't know the way out, do you?" he asked. The bunny seemed to giggle. "Of course I do. But that doesn't mean I'm going to tell you," the bunny said, although Naruto heard it. It was like when he hears Hikari when she's in his head. Naruto tensed, and immediately began to scan his surroundings. Noticing no one was around, he turned back to the bunny, who seemed to be pouting. "It's not very nice to ignore someone, especially when you're the first guest I've had in decades," the bunny said again. Naruto eyed the bunny warily. "Well then, sorry. It's not every day you meet a talking bunny," he said. The bunny seemed to nod. "True enough. So, you are here for the immortality trials? Or is Inari-sama just messing with poor mortals again?" it said. Naruto shook his head. "Immortality trials," he said. "So how can I get the way out of here from you?" he asked. The bunny seemed to be chuckling. "I'll tell you, if you can find my weak spot," it said as it started to grow. Naruto's eyes went wide, as he watched this cute little rabbit turn into a rabbit the size of Kyuubi. Naruto quickly backpedaled, and noticed a group of very strange knights. They all had different tabards on, but they looked like they were riding horses without the horses, and their squires were clapping coconuts together. Naruto nearly sweat dropped when their apparent leader, and a king with a crown on his head, yelled, "Great Scott! It's the killer rabbit! Run for it, boys!" he yelled, as they all pretended to run away on their fake horses. Naruto did sweat drop when the rabbit slammed its paw on top of them. "Okay, that was pathetic," Naruto stated before turning back to the rabbit. Kami's court, same time. Everyone was deadpanning as they watched the scene, well except for Hikari, who was drooling and muttering, "Dinner." Kami looked at Inari. "What the hell is that?" she asked. Inari chuckled. "Why, that, my good girl, is a Monty Python and the Holy Grail reference," he said, causing more sweat drops among the gods and guests. Susanoo, however, was nodding sagely. Good reference. But why did you make the rabbit so big?" he asked. Inari chuckled again. "Because it'd make Hikari-chan drool, of course," he said, pointing to the nearly comatose Hikari, who had a puddle of drool under her mouth. Amaterasu sighed, and walked over before shutting Hikari's mouth. "Control yourself. What would Naruto-kun think?" she asked, snapping Hikari out of her funk. Hikari chuckled nervously. "Sorry," she said. Yami chuckled, as she watched the fight. "Your mate is very good. He's avoided that rabbit for nearly 10 minutes now," she commented, turning everyone's attention back to the screen. Rabbit plane, same time. Naruto dodged yet another paw strike from the giant rabbit, and cursed. "Damn thing is fast, and its size makes its strikes very powerful. So its legs can't be the weak spot. It's even snapped at me a few times, so its head is also safe to count out," he thought before he had to dodge the rabbit's teeth again. "Come on, Naruto. If you don't figure out my weak spot, you'll die here," the rabbit said. Naruto growled, and stepped back before rapidly making a seal, and yelling out, "Heido no Senjusen, so Katsui, Way of Destruction number 33, blue fire," crashed down. A bright yellow beam of fire blasted the rabbit, and caused it to dodge to the side, but still suffer a burn on its right front leg. "That hurt, you little shit," the rabbit growled out, as it attempted to stand back up. Naruto took this quick moment to think again. This is supposed to be a test of intelligence and cunning. So let's try solving this mentally. Its legs and head are safe, the body is too wide in area. The internal organs are too numerous, and while he is a prankster, he is honorable according to Hikari. Glad I took the time out to ask about all the celestial beings. Naruto thought happily. He looked back to the rabbit, and noticed its burn marks starting to heal, although it still couldn't move yet. Good, so if its body is safe then the only spot left is its tail, he thought before smirking. The killer rabbit growled, as it finally stood up. I'm going to get you for that, you little bastard, it said. Naruto chuckled. Your weak spot is your tail, he said, gaining a pissed off look from the rabbit. Damn it! It mentally yelled at Naruto. You are correct. Very well, the answer you seek is in the clouds, it said before smirking and disappearing. Naruto stared in shock. What the hell kind of answer is that? He roared at the non-existent rabbit. There was no reply, and Naruto settled for groaning in frustration, and walking toward the other end of the plain, where there was another entrance to the maze, all the while muttering something about bunny soup. Kami's court, same time. Kami shook her head. I should have had someone more stable test his intelligence, she said. Inari smirked. Now Kami-chan, just because I love a good joke doesn't mean I'm unstable, he said cheerfully. Yami snorted. Yeah, and I'm the queen of butterflies and angels, she said. The god and two goddesses continued to banter back and forth for several minutes, eventually causing many of the other gods to join in, as well. However, 5 people were busy with something more important, so they did not join in on the crazy train. Hikari sighed as she watched Naruto walk off, and turned to Amaterasu, who immediately realized she should have gone back to her seat, and prepared herself for the verbal lashing she was about to receive. Hikari opened her mouth like she was going to yell. You are going to apologize for keeping this from Naruto when he gets done. When you go on your date, you will dress nicely, and you will hang on him like a girlfriend would. I won't force you to sleep with him then, but you better show him a good time, she said calmly. Amaterasu blinked owlishly, and Hana stepped up to her. When your date is over, you are going to make sure that he wants another one. If he doesn't ask, you will. Understood? She said. Amaterasu slowly nodded, and was about to speak when Anko stepped in, and gave her a slap across the face. That was for not telling us. We aren't mad. We are disappointed in Amaterasu-san. You will stand with us, and you're going to cheer him on. Got it? She said. Amaterasu nodded again. She may be a goddess, but these girls were her friends. Despite the rules, she should have given them some warning. I'm sorry. I'll do as you say, she said softly. Hikari smiled, and hugged her. Good, then all is forgiven, she said happily. Amaterasu looked at her in shock. You can't be serious, she said, surprised. Hana quickly joined in the hug. Yeah, just do, as we said, and it's all fine, she said smiling. Well, that, and we will ring your second date, but you don't need to know that, she thought. Anko squealed, and joined in the hug. Naruto's cheerleaders. Group hug, she yelled, causing all the girls to smile and start laughing, Amaterasu smiling more broadly than her friends. They all turned back to the screen just in time to see Naruto contort in ways that shouldn't be possible just to avoid spikes coming out of the wall. Maze corridor, same time. Naruto's sweat dropped, as he had dodged the spikes by becoming a living pretzel. You have got to be kidding me, he said, as the spikes retracted. He sighed, and relaxed his muscles, as he walked around the next bend, and found himself in a strange circular room with 2 openings, one behind him, and one right in front of him past the bed. Yep, that was a king-sized bed alright, Naruto thought, as he walked into the room, keeping himself alert. All of a sudden his instincts went haywire, as something came flying through the air at him. Yahoo Naruto-kun, a female said before all Naruto could see was a yellow sweater. He was suddenly well aware of the fact his head was in between 2 heavenly pillows that were as firm as they were soft. His hands shot up, and began pushing against them, but it only resulted in him groping the wondrous upayas that were currently suffocating him. Naruto suddenly felt 4 very powerful Ki's hit him, and realized what would happen if he decided to stick around. He mentally sighed, and suddenly the woman was holding a log which she stared at for a moment before saying, That wasn't very nice, Naruto-kun. She pouted, as she turned to the side of the room where Naruto froze in a running pose. Naruto chuckled nervously. Who are you? He asked. The rather petite woman, with upayas as large as Tsunade's, giggled. I'm Kurumu, she said. Naruto smiled, again nervously, as he just knew his girls were watching him. Well, it's nice to meet you, Kuruma-san, he said, eyes still darting around nervously. Kuruma pouted cutely. You look like you want to run away, she half-whined. Naruto winced, as he never did like hearing disappointment in a woman's voice. It's not that, I just need to finish this challenge, he said. Kuruma slowly walked towards him, making sure to sway her body, and let her pious jiggle with each step as she spoke. "Why's that? Couldn't you just stay here with me? I'm sure we could play some games and have some fun," she said, as she reached him and began to lean forward to catch him in a kiss. Naruto quickly stepped away, as he felt the 4Ki's from earlier resurface, and said, look, not to be rude, but I don't have time to play with you," he said, as he inched his way towards the exit. Kami's court. When Naruto entered Kuruma's room, the entirety of the court was quiet, as they watched him enter, and many of the males in the room silently seethed at seeing the boy get glomped like that. However, 4 women were very pissed, and some of their Ki was being directed at Inari, who began to sweat nervously. While all 4 had the similar thought of that bitch best back off, Anko also thought Naruto-kun should only be pressed into MYU pious like that, before giggling perversely at that thought. Amaterasu turned to Inari, and glared, after Naruto separated himself from Kurama of course. "Who is that?" she growled out. Inari chuckled, having regained his bravado. "That, my dear Okami, is a Rosario vampire reference," he said happily. Yami chuckled, as she watched Kurama put the moves on Naruto. "A girl after my own heart," she said smiling. Inari nodded. "Of course. She is a succubus after all," he said. Kami shook her head. "I knew I should have chosen someone else," she said, as he rested her head in her hands before feeling the girl's Ki again. When Kurama tried to kiss Naruto, the girls flared their Ki again. They watched, as he began to escape, and nodded in contentment. No one was getting a move on their man without their permission. Kuruma's room, same time. Naruto chuckled nervously, as he dodged yet another Kurama missile, as he called her jumping attempts to kiss him. He sighed, and watched her jump at him again only for him to shunshin behind her, and quickly make a Kage bunshin. He went onto a small rock, and watched, as the clone got tackled, and looked at him over Kuruma's shoulder, and mouthed "thank you," before Naruto quickly ran out of the room. Naruto was a good 15 feet down 3 more turns before he was stopped, as his clone dispelled, and showed him that Kurama had been able to kiss him repeatedly. He could swear he felt those Ki's again, and nearly got him undressed before it dispersed. He shivered, as he really did feel those Ki's, and quickly made his way down the hall, so as to assure his future mates didn't kill him, and only maimed him horribly. Naruto sighed, as he spent the next 3 hours dodging strange traps, and some gags. He was getting bored when he noticed another room up ahead. He simply steeled himself, and walked into the room only to see a table with 2 chairs, and a chess set. Now Naruto was no expert at playing chess, but he could play shogi, and go, checkers, chess, and backgammon all rather well. He looked around until he heard a voice. "So you are my opponent?" came the slightly mechanical voice of 1-0. Naruto turned back to the chess table only to see a man dressed in a dark blue cape and suit combo, along with a strange helmet. He raised an eyebrow. "Your opponent?" Naruto asked. The man nodded. "Yes. My name is Zero. Would you care for a game?" he asked. Naruto nodded, and sat down. "Name's Naruto. And sure, a game sounds fun right about now," Naruto said, as he moved his pawn out. Zero made a move, and Naruto silently contemplated his next move. He moved out another pawn. "So what do you do?" he asked. Zero moved another piece. "I'm a leader of a group of fighters who fight against the tyranny of Britannia." "And you?" he answered and asked. Naruto moved yet another piece, and said, "I'm a ninja for my home village of Konoha," he answered. This sparked off a series of questions and answers among the two. Kami court, same time. Everyone was silent, and Inari was looking around disappointed. Yami finally got annoyed, and said, "Okay Inari, who is this guy?" she asked. Inari smiled brightly. "That, my dear bad girl, is a Code Geass reference," he said. Yami sighed. "Let me guess, Zero is a genius, huh?" she asked. Inari smiled again. "Yep," he said cheerfully. Hikari pulled a giant mallet from somewhere, and smacked Inari over his head. "Quit making all these anime and movie references," she yelled, as Inari was flattened into a pancake on the ground. Amaterasu shook her head. "Hikari-chan, don't kill Inari Baka. He controls the area Naruto-kun is in after all," she said. Hikari chuckled sheepishly. "Oops," she said. Hana shook her head. "As well, Hikari-chan doesn't think before she acts very much, does she?" she asked, gaining shakes of their heads from both Amaterasu and Anko. Hikari blushed sheepishly, and the rest of the gods just shook their heads. They all turned back to the screen just as Naruto yelled, "Hey look, there's the Emperor!" Zero's chess room. The past 30 minutes had been a back and forth question and answer while they played a rather browsing game of chess. However, Zero was winning, and had stated that he would not allow Naruto to continue should he lose the chess match. Naruto glared at Zero, as he said, "You lose in 10 moves." Naruto sighed. "Perhaps, hey look, there's the Emperor," he yelled, Zero immediately turned around and looked around. Behind his back, Naruto quickly turned the chessboard around and sat there like nothing was wrong. Zero turned around, and Naruto could feel his glare. You turned the board around. That was underhanded, he said threateningly. I have no idea what you're talking about, Naruto said innocently. Zero's eye slot opened, and he said, You're not going to make a fool of me. His eyes started to glow with a weird chevron signal. Lelouch 6 Britannia commanded you. Answer my question, he ordered. Naruto's face suddenly became blank, and he answered in monotone, Yes. Zero's visible eye twitched. You're faking, he stated. Naruto suddenly chuckled. Of course I am. I'm Naruto fucking Uzumaki Namikaze. Nobody commands me, damn it, he said before feeling something was wrong, and immediately added, except my future mates. Naruto relaxed, as he felt that sense of foreboding disappear. Zero scowled. Fine, you win. Get out of here, he half yelled, as he sat back and watched, as Naruto just shook his head and walked out of the room with a smile on his face. Naruto, then, spent the next 3 hours making more twists and turns through the maze before finding himself at a fork in the road. To his right, led to a wide open space. In front of him, led to more twists and turns through the maze. Naruto looked around and shrugged before walking towards the opening. When he reached it, his eye began to twitch, and the people watching could see his chakra visibly manifest around him. He roared as he looked at the plain white area in front of him. He was back to where he started. He immediately began to look around, and finally grew few up, and said, Fuck it, before pulling out a tri-bladed kunai. The girls in Kami's court all gasped, and Susanoo stared intently at the blade. Naruto threw it in the air, and disappeared with a shout of Hiraishin no Jutsu, Flying Thunder God technique. Naruto appeared next to the kunai, and grabbed it before throwing it again, this time clearing the maze's wall. He disappeared in another flash, and landed atop the wall. He looked around, and his face immediately twisted into rage. That bastard, he yelled, and he threw the kunai yet again, and reappeared halfway through the maze. He grabbed the kunai, and threw it again, this time landing in a closed-off space, with an open exit right in front of him. I don't really have an abstract way to say this, so there was no way to get to the exit from inside the maze. You had to climb or walk around the maze to get out. Suddenly, Naruto was confronted by a lion-like animal with the head of a human. You have reached the end, and now must answer my riddle to exit the maze, it said. Naruto scoffed, and held up his hand. Like hell I do. That bastard owes me for making this stupid maze without an exit. Odama Rasengan, great ball spiraling sphere, he yelled, as he slammed it into the Sphinx, and caused the creature to fly back and be knocked unconscious. Naruto swiftly walked out of the maze, and disappeared in a white flash. Kami's court, same time. The various gods in attendance were very surprised at Inari's action, and Yami shook her head. That was underhanded, Inari, she said. Amaterasu glared at him. No, that was downright cruel, she said, being backed by her fellow Naruto lovers. Inari chuckled nervously, as he saw Naruto disappear. Now, there's no need to be angry. He did pass after all, he said. Naruto suddenly appeared, and looked around the room before making a beeline for Inari, yelling, You. He quickly grabbed the god, and lifted him off the floor. You better have a damn good explanation or reward. Otherwise you're going to be androgynous when I'm done with you, he roared. Inari started to sweat, and he leaned into Naruto's ear, and whispered something that caused Naruto to drop him in shock. Naruto regained his bearings, and turned his glare back to Inari before saying, Tell me or else. Inari quickly nodded, and Naruto whipped out a notepad, wrote down a few notes, and quickly sealed it away. You're damn lucky, Inari-san. Next time, I won't be so forgiving, he said, glaring again. Everyone stared at Naruto in shock. What could he have possibly said that would make you forgive him like that? Anko yelled. Naruto waved his hand dismissively. I'll tell you later. After I made sure what he told me was true, he stated. No one noticed the slight blush he had. Kami simply sighed. That's enough. Naruto has passed the intelligence and cunning portion of the exams. All that is left is the heart. Susanoo, if you would, she said, motioning to the god. Susanoo nodded and stepped forward. I'll be testing you, last brat. If I don't deem you worthy, you will die, so prepare yourself, he said. Naruto gained a serious visage. I'm ready whenever you are, Storm God, he said. Susanoo smirked. Good, he stated before he touched Naruto's head, and time seemed to freeze. Susanoo's mindscape. Naruto looked around only to notice he was on a beach with a storm raging out at sea. He felt oddly at peace, as he watched the storm rage, and the sea move. Beautiful, is it not? Came Susanoo's voice from behind him. Naruto spun around, and faced the calm god. Relax, Naruto-kun. You have already passed my test. We are simply here to talk away from prying eyes, he stated. Naruto looked at him warily. How did I pass your test so easily? He asked. Susanoo laughed. Easily? You call a childhood of hell easy? He asked with a raised eyebrow, getting a flash of recognition in Naruto's eyes. I have always watched Naruto. Your father impressed me greatly. I even gifted him with the idea of the Hiroshino. He named it after Raijin, and the bastard never lets me forget it, he stated, surprising Naruto. You watched my childhood? He asked quietly. Susanoo nodded and sighed. I could not interfere. I sincerely wish I could have, but alas, Kami rules forbade it, and I had to bide my time to get you here, he said. Naruto frowned, but nodded. Amaterasu had often cursed at Kami rules. So, what did you wish to talk about? He asked. Susanoo smiled. First of all, I will be marking you. You already have all the necessary elements for storm release, so I will leave you with some jutsu for that. In addition, your affinities will be stronger with my mark, and they will mesh easier, so the release itself shouldn't take too long to master. I'm sure you're wondering why I'm the only one with a mark left, he said questioningly, getting a nod from Naruto. Well, I never found anyone worthy. Your father came close, but he didn't have the emotional fortitude you do. Understand? He said. Naruto nodded again. So I'll be getting storm release? Will this affect my children? And what about my bloodline? He asked. Susanoo nodded yes to the first. Yes to the second, as in they will inherit it. And your bloodline will be unaffected, he stated. After a happy nod from Naruto, he continued. Now, second, I will be altering your body to make you a demigod. You would normally gain traits associated with me, but I do not want that, so you will be special. And this will tie into the last thing I want you to do for me, he stated. Naruto looked at him curiously, and Susanoo smirked. I will be making your attributes more wolf-like, he said. Naruto stared at him for a moment. Wolf-like? Okay, but what is this thing you want me to do? He asked. Susanoo smirked. Well, Tsukuyumi and Amaterasu are my sisters, you see. Tsukuyumi and I have had lovers in the past, but Ami-chan has had, well, none, he stated. My third and final thing to talk about, and my request, is to make my sister stop being such a prude, he said, gaining a shocked look from Naruto. Why wait, back up, rewind. You want me to sleep with Ami-chan? He asked incredulously. Susanoo nodded. I've seen the way you two interact, and I believe you are the one to break her out of being so non-impulsive. She's always considered everything before acting, and I think it would be great to break her out of it. Not to mention getting laid would really help her stop being so uptight. Your body change is because she would find it more appealing, and I know your other lovers will enjoy it, as well. Oh, did I mention you will also be able to transform into a wolf at will? He asked. Naruto smiled. So basically, you will give me a whole body makeover, and want me to hook up with your sister? He asked. Susanoo nodded. So? What do you say? He asked. Naruto thought for a moment before smirking foxily. Make the fur golden, and keep it soft and cuddly for my girls, and you got yourself a deal, he said, extending his hand in agreement. Susanoo smiled and grabbed Naruto's hand. Good, oh, and I'll be aging you a few years, as well. Good luck, he stated, as they both faded from view. Kami's court. 5 seconds after Susanoo touched Naruto's head, Naruto began to shine brightly, as his changes took place. He grew to a rather nice height of 5 feet 11 inches, and his muscles seemed to expand before becoming slightly more compact. The girls all stared in awe, as the light died down, and they immediately sported blushes, as they all took in the new Naruto. While he was muscular before, now it was more compact. His eyes still held that bright blue, but it now had a slit pupil. His hair had grown slightly, and 2 bangs framed his face with a small mane of hair behind his head. His fingers and toes were slightly clawed. The last thing they noticed, and the first thing they acted on, was the 2 golden wolf-like ears on his head, and the golden tail swishing around behind him. The 4 girls yelled kawaii, before quickly glomping Naruto, as Anko and Hikari each took an ear while Hana and Amaterasu began to pet his tail. Naruto smiled brightly, and began to purr, much to his embarrassment, and said, While I like the attention, girls, maybe we could save this for later? He asked. The girls all blushed, and stepped away muttering apologies. Kami chuckled. Good, you have passed the trials of Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. Your primary mission is to track down and kill Orochimaru, but first, get strong enough to do so. Amaterasu shall be your official liaison, since she seems so interested in you, she said, giving Amaterasu a knowing gaze. Amaterasu simply blushed, and caused a ripple of chuckles to go across the room. May your journey be fruitful, and may your steps always be blessed, she said before waving her hand, and the group disappeared again. Kami turned to Ryujin, who stepped forward. Ryujin, I have a job for you. Surprising all the gods present. She hadn't set forth a task for Ryujin in nearly 300 years. Ryujin bowed. "What is your command, my lady?" he asked. Kami's face turned serious. "Find that boy's mother. I have looked into the past, and she was sent into a personal dimension. You are the most versed in traveling between worlds, and I want her found ASAP. Understood?" she said. Ryujin nodded, and bowed. "I shall start immediately." "Good day," he said before disappearing in a silver flash. Kami smiled. "It's good to see someone so ardent about their work," she said happily. Yamki chuckled at that, and looked to Susanoo, who stood near his seat. "So when do you think they will learn about him being 18? She asked. Susanoo chuckled, and raised his hand, counting down from 5. When he reached 0, they could all hear, "Nanny," followed by "Sweet, he's legal," causing them all to sweat drop. Hikari glanced at Naruto, as he sat with the rest of his girls. It was 2 days after Naruto had taken the trials, and passed, with flying colors. She looked back to the picnic basket filled with sushi, and a jar of sake. Tomorrow was Amaterasu's date with Naruto, and she had no intention of letting him go without reminding him who the alpha female was around here. She had planned this late lunch for later today, and she giggled, as she thought of what she had in store. Hopefully, Naruto would play along. They had moved into the Namake's estate the same day of the trials, and every girl had their own room, with Naruto having the major bedroom. There was a private onsen, and a rather large library, so Naruto had sent several clones to read it over the past 2 days. He had read much of the history, and was beginning to head into politics. Aside from that, he left the jutsus alone so he could master the ones he had now, although he did learn one wind technique. They were all very happy to have more room, and it helped their friendships to live together, Hana having been given permission by Tsum. Speaking of Tsum, she had made a surprise visit, and had quickly glommed on to the new Naruto. Naruto, while enjoying the attention his new features gave him, had asked if there was a way to hide them, and Amaterasu had ended up teaching him a simple jutsu to hide his extra features. Once Tsum had calmed down, however, she had insisted that Naruto inform the Hokage about his change. Naruto had agreed, and Hikari had mentally suggested that it be part of his bloodline so as to not arouse suspicion, which Naruto quickly agreed to. They didn't need anyone outside of their personal group knowing about his demigod status or mission, yet, as to his change, when they returned from the trials, Naruto had informed them of his age, and nearly had to run from a rather horny Hana and Enko. However, they had quickly been cowed by the more level-headed Amaterasu and the alpha Hikari. Needless to say, this had caused a major shift in the household, where, before, the girls had all enjoyed his presence, and were definitely contemplating their futures with him. Now, Hikari and Enko were ready to jump him. Hana was seriously considering ignoring the dating phase, and joining Naruto's meatstick group, and Amaterasu was having trouble trying to keep herself from doing something rash. Simply put, Naruto was now legal, and he had the body of a blonde Adonis, meaning that Enko and Hikari were done waiting for him to grow up while Amaterasu and Hana were trying to build a better relationship first, though not too much. Naruto, on the other hand, hadn't made a move on any of the girls, and they were a bit wary of his mentality concerning his new body. They didn't know if he was prepared to accept them sexually, and they had all agreed, after the initial lust had subsided, that they would not pressure him into sags, although they didn't say they couldn't tempt him. Then again, Enko and Hikari had been tempting him for years, so it may not work. Little did they know, Naruto was more than ready, and he was just biding his time, for now. Hikari smiled, as she finished packing the sushi away for the picnic, and picked up the tea she had made for everyone, since they had woken up late, and no one wanted to eat breakfast. She set it down with a smile, and listened to what they were speaking of. Naruto laughed. So then, I made this seal that would weaken the wood of the vendor's cart enough so that, when he got his next watermelon shipment, it'd collapse, and make him lose all of his stock. Well that, and I loosened his brakes so the cart would roll downhill before collapsing, he said with a smile on his face. The girls quickly joined in on the laughs. While Hikari and Enko had often seen his pranks, even they didn't know all of them, and most of them were actually rather funny. And all this because she sold you rotten food? Man, I'd hate to see what happens to someone who really annoys you, Hana said, smirking. Naruto smirked. You don't wanna know, Hana-chan, he said. Enko shook her head. Don't even ask what happened the first time I decided to prank him, she said. Naruto smiled devilishly. Oh yeah, how did that turn out for ya, butterfly? He asked, getting confusing looks from the other girls. Sans Hikari. Enko blushed furiously. You promised that you wouldn't mention it, she hissed at him. Naruto chuckled. What's the matter? If the way you all acted when we returned from the trials is any indication, they're going to find out about it being somewhere private, he said, surprising his girls, as they didn't really expect him to make such an innuendo. Hana leaned in. So you gonna tell us or leave us hanging? she asked, nearly drooling at the prospect of having blackmail on her friend. Naruto opened his mouth, and Anko promptly covered it. Fine, I tried to put dye in his shampoo bottle when he was 9. He came out with neon green hair for a week, she said, getting giggles from all the girls. Naruto glared at her, and removed her hand. I was pissed, so I decided to get back at her. She came home after a particularly long mission, and I got her drunk, he said. Anko glared back. Yeah, and after you got me drunk you somehow got me to an all-night tattoo parlor, and was able to goad my drunk ass into getting a tattoo, she said angrily. Naruto smirked. That's what you get for trying to prank the prank master, he said. Hana and Amaterasu turned to one another before smirking, and turning back to the paling Anko. So where is it? Hana asked. And I'm assuming it's a butterfly considering that Naruto-kun called you that, Amaterasu added, as she leaned in closer with Hana. Now girls, I'm sure we can never finish Anko. It's on the inside of her right thigh. It's a purple and gold butterfly, purple for her, and gold for Naruto-kun, Hikari said, smirking. Anko stared at her with her jaw slack. She had totally forgotten that Hikari was inside of Naruto when he did that. She was brought from her thoughts, as Hana and Amaterasu squealed, and grabbed her begging to be shown. She sighed, and yelled, fine, get off me. Hana and Amaterasu immediately backed off, but stayed nearby with big puppy dog eyes, enhanced by their feral qualities. She slowly raised her skirt to show a beautiful purple and gold butterfly rather close to the edge of her panties, and her special place. Hana whistled, that's pretty. She looked into Anko's eyes and smirked. Naruto-kun must be impressed that he has scenery while he's eating out, she said. Anko promptly blushed bright red. Despite her teasing, Hana had found that Anko was very prone to embarrassment when Naruto was involved. Naruto, who was sitting there, was also red, but he smirked. Indeed, I am Hana-chan. Maybe you should get some scenery as well? He asked her, causing her blush to rival that of Anko's. Hikari smirked. As much as I love seeing you establish your territory, you have a meeting with the Hokage, and then lunch with me, so get, she said, as she pushed him towards the door. Naruto smirked. Alright already, he said, as he headed towards the door. Keep your panties on. Naruto paused, and looked over his shoulder, and right at Hikari. On second thought, take them off, he said, causing yet another tomato blush, and he walked out of the room laughing, barely dodging the vase that shattered against the wall. Hikari turned back to the girls who were all still blushing, Amaterasu less than the others. Well, I guess we were too good at teasing him, huh, Anko? She said, smirking. The girls all nodded, and Hikari shook her head. Well, I have a lunch date to set up later, she said, as she grabbed the basket with the sushi, and disappeared in a flash of fire. The rest of the girls just shook their heads, trying to get rid of their blushes. Hokage's office, 10:30 a.m. Jiraiya, Tsunade, and Sarutobi were waiting for Naruto to show up. While they all knew that Tsunade would take the Hokage position, Naruto had yet to be informed. Speaking of Tsunade, the chakra exercise that she had given to Naruto was progressing very well. He could float a medium-sized boulder for a good 15 minutes while a large boulder forced his concentration and reserves, too much to hold it for longer than 3 minutes. Naruto kicked the door open, and the 3 occupants took in the new Naruto. Since he had aged, he had decided to change his look again. He now had baggy black cargo pants, reinforced of course, with shin guards, and black combat boots on. His shirt was, again, black, but it depicted a hurricane with lightning on the back, with the Uzumaki swirl over his heart on the front. He had a long black coat that went to his ankles, and had golden flames along the bottom. It also had the kanji for storm, and defense in gold along the back. His Hittite was strapped to her right arm, and his hair was reminiscent of Minato's, but he let the hair flow freely down his neck and upper back. Think Ichigo's hairstyle from when he fully masters Zangetsu, but longer, and with Minato's front bangs. Jiraiya let loose a whistle. Looking smart there, kid, he said with a smirk. Naruto smiled. Thanks. So do we need to set up a silencing tag again? He asked. Sarutobi shook his head, as Naruto closed the door. No need for Naruto-kun. Since Danzo's flight, I have had no problem with information leaks. Besides, the information here will soon become common knowledge, he said, smiling softly. Naruto looked to his 2 estranged godparents. So, I'm guessing one of you chose to accept the Hokage position, he half-asked. Tsunade nodded. I have agreed to become Godame Hokage. Dan and Nawaki would want me to carry on their dream. She smiled softly before it turned into a smirk. Besides, if I let the pervert have it, he'd make all the kunoichi wear stuff like Anko, she said. Suddenly Jiraiya burst out crying. Why oh why did I not accept when I had the chance? He asked, crying anime tears. The other occupants just sweat dropped, and Naruto turned to her. It's good to hear Oba-san. So, what's your first order of business? He asked, taking a seat with Tsunade taking the other, and leaving Jiraiya to stand on the side. Tsunade's eye twitched, but she sighed and let it go. I want to address the Medic Nin program and the academy. From what you told me when we trained, the academy needs a major overhaul. The medics, well, don't get me started, she said, sighing again. Naruto nodded. Might I suggest a class for Fuinjutsu for the academy? At the very least, ninjas should be able to seal and unseal their gear, and such. Even if they can't actually make the seal, he said. Tsunade nodded. That's a good idea. I will definitely take that into consideration, she said. This line of suggestions, and a few arguments between students, teacher, and Jinchuriki continued until 12:20 a.m., when Naruto noticed the clock. Naruto paled. I gotta go, he yelled, and shot out of his chair. Everyone gave him weird looks until he said, I'm supposed to meet Hikari-chan for lunch in 10 minutes. He quickly rushed out the door to the amused chuckles of the elders inside. The Sannin pulled out some sake, and handed them all a cup, to be young and virile again, he said with an amused chuckle. He raised his glass to the door, to family, he said smiling, getting a smile, and a raised glass from both of his students before they went back to work. Clearing near Konoha, 12:30 a.m. Naruto landed in the preset clearing, and looked around for his demoness. When he noticed that no one was there, he began to slowly expand his senses. For a good 5 minutes he continued to look around, until a flash of red caught his eye. He turned to the woods, and noticed a fully grown red fox staring right at him. It quickly turned, and ran off when he caught sight of it, and he jumped into action, as he barreled through the trees after the elusive fox. Naruto didn't notice it at the time, but the fox had 9 tails trailing behind it. He chased the fox for a good 15 minutes, losing sight of it a few times because of the thick underbrush, and finally grew fed up with it. He leapt into the air, and when he landed, a magnificent golden wolf with bright blue eyes took off after the fox. The fox, rather surprised by this, dashed out into a clearing, and looked back only to be blindsided by a golden blur. The two creatures tumbled across the clearing, and ended up near a set blanket with some sushi, and a small jar of sake on it. The fox was looking up at the wolf with slight fear while the wolf was growling down at his prey. Suddenly, the wolf stopped growling, and its muzzle came down to nip and lick at the fox's neck, causing the fox to out in appreciation. The wolf stopped, and seemed to smirk. As much as I would like to continue our little hunt, Kitsunheim, I am hungry. Naruto's voice floated into the fox's mind. The fox blushed under her fur, and nodded. I am too. I didn't know you could change into a wolf. Hikari's voice was also transmitted to Naruto. They both changed out of their animal forms, and Naruto stood up, offering a hand to his demoness. Hikari was dressed in a rather loose red kimono with blue fire dancing along the edges. She was barefoot, however, and the kimono showed a generous amount of cleavage. I wanted it to be a surprise, so surprise, he said with a smile, as she took his hand, and got up. Hikari smiled, and blushed slightly, as he held her hand, and led her to the blanket. It certainly was a surprise and impressive, she replied. Naruto blushed under the praise, and they sat down on the blanket. Thank you. Susanoo thought it might be beneficial to have, so he added the feature, he said, as Hikari put some sake into a glass, and handed it to him. He smiled, and shed his jacket to the side. Hikari smiled again. I'll have to thank him later then, she said. Naruto nodded, and they both began to eat in a comfortable silence. The day was beautiful, not too hot nor too cold. A soft, cool breeze filtered through the trees and untamed grass. Naruto finished eating almost half of the sushi, and smiled at Hikari, as she continued to slowly savor her food. He had only had 1 glass of sake, even though Hikari had filled it again. He quietly lay down, and began to look at the clouds, but he still kept an eye on Hikari. Hikari, on the other hand, was actually enjoying her food, and the very slight buzz she had. It wasn't often that the two of them just went and had some quiet alone time, regardless of their symbiotic relationship. It was nice to see Naruto enjoy the food she made, and she had found his wolf form rather enticing. She subtly shifted, and looked at Naruto. He seemed so at peace, and it wasn't often she saw him like this. She smiled softly, and closed her eyes thinking, I'm glad he's so relaxed, I'll just leave him alone. As much as I want him, I need to wait until he's ready. Naruto smirked, as he saw Hikari close her eyes. He silently created a Kage Bunshin, and it grabbed the various glasses, and such, and quietly moved them off of the blanket. Hikari opened her eyes, as she felt herself being gently tackled to the blanket. Naruto let out his celestial features, and smirked at his future mate. You weren't planning on something else after this lunch, were you, Kitsunheim? He asked, as he kept her pinned to the blanket, and started to subtly move his body over hers. She blushed. Maybe. Why? She asked, as she let her own demonic features appear, as well. Naruto smirked, and his face descended to her. Hikari murmured back, still snuggled into his chest. We definitely need to do that again, and maybe add Anko-chan, she said with a perverse smirk on her face. Naruto blushed, but chuckled. Maybe if she wants to, he said, smirking. He checked the sun, and noticed it was nearly 2 in the afternoon. We have another hour or two before the other girls get suspicious, he said. Hikari smirked, and shifted her head so she could look into his eyes. Are you saying what I think you're saying? She asked. Naruto shook his head. Unfortunately, no. She pouted, but Naruto said, you got me first, so we need to wash or they will all know it, and I'd prefer for you to have the element of surprise on that, he said. Hikari's eyes suddenly got a prankster-like gleam. Alright then, there's a small pond nearby. We could clean up there, she said. Naruto smirked. That sounds like fun, he said, his own eyes gleaming. Hikari slowly stood up and stretched. Well, what are we waiting for? She turned back to Naruto only to be left in the dust, as a golden blur rushed past her and towards the pond. She stamped her foot in frustration and yelled, That's not fair, Naruto Kun, before leaping and changing into her fox form and chasing after him. That night, after a harmless and sexless bath, Naruto and Hikari had returned to the lab. Amaterasu and Hana had been out, as Amaterasu had taken to helping Hana with her veterinarian duties, and they would return late tonight. However, Anko had noticed Hikari's glow and giggled. How was he, Hikari-chan? She asked, smirking, causing the Demoness and her mate to blush. Hikari suddenly giggled back, bigger and better than expected. Inari's little secret was quite pleasurable and worth it, she said, smirking. Anko looked back and forth between them before Naruto sighed. Inari is the god of foxes, so he told me all of Hikari-chan's special areas. He smirked, and I put them to very good use, he said. Anko giggled perversely, and Naruto suddenly found her draped over his back with her mouth breathing heavily into his ear. I hope we get to explore a little more than you did with Hikari-chan, she said seductively. Naruto smirked, and turned his head to let her see it. Maybe you should let Hikari-chan join in then, he said. Anko's eyes went wide, and she blushed, but smirked. Sounds like fun, Naruto-kun, she whispered into his ear. Hikari blushed off to the side. Naruto suddenly turned, and captured Anko's lips in a kiss, and she pulled a Hikari by stiffening, and then melting into it. When they broke for air, Naruto smirked. I'll make sure to satisfy you later, Hibiheim. For now, I'm tired, and I want my pillows, he said somewhat childishly. Both girls broke out into giggles, as they grabbed him, and they all appeared on the bed, Naruto's head snuggled firmly into their generous busts. Naruto had one thought, as he drifted off to sleep. It's good to be me. Next day, Team 10 meeting area, 10 a.m. Naruto shunned Shinedin, and smiled at his team. Ever since his little show for the clan heads, they had really come together. While Yamato had taught them all a defensive jutsu, he had decided to teach them each an offensive one, as well, before he would request a C rank mission. For Ino, since she had lower reserves, he taught her the Suiton, Teppadama no Jutsu, water release, water bullet technique, which allowed her to shoot up to 3 water balls, at her current level, at her enemy with high force. For Shino, he had taught him Doton, Doriyuso no Jutsu, earth release, rising stone spears technique, which, as the name implies, causes the earth to form spears to attempt to impale a target. For Naruto, he taught him the Suten, Suryuden no Jutsu, water release, water dragon technique, which formed from a nearby water source into a dragon. Now, Yamato only taught Naruto such a strong technique because he knew, even though Naruto's control was pretty good, that any low-level technique would either blow up or become insanely overpowered by Naruto's chakra. So, he opted for power instead of control. This technique could be manipulated, but Naruto would never have the control to more than turn it. As it was, Naruto could only blast it straight forward. Naruto jogged over to his team, and said, Ohio Mina. Ino smiled. Ohio Naruto-kun, she replied. Shino and Yamato both leaned their heads in greeting, and Yamato stepped forward. Okay, all of you have done tremendously well in your jutsus. I have started Shino and Ino on their elemental manipulation, and I asked Kakashi-san and Asuma-san to detail the first step of lightning and wind manipulation for you, Naruto, here on these scrolls, he said before handing the scrolls to Genin. Naruto smiled and bowed. Thank you, sensei. I appreciate this, he said. Yamato waved him off. It's all fine, Naruto-kun. Consider it a thank you for giving me a chance to get to know you instead of just immediately writing me off as the Sandame's spy, he said with a soft smile. Naruto nodded. I don't like to prejudge. After all, that's what the villagers do, he said. Yamato nodded before clapping his hands together. Well, I believe it is time for us to get a C rank mission, he said cheerfully, gaining a smile from Ino and Naruto, while Shino just buzzed slightly. Let's go then, Yamato said, noticing their excitement. The team quickly made its way to the Hokage Tower, and Sarutobi smiled when they walked in. Ah, Team 10. I was expecting you. I have a very nice C rank for exterminating some bandits between here and the Hot Springs country, he said smiling. Yamato looked at his genin, and saw only determination to prove their worth to their Jounin sensei. We accept Hokage-sama, he said with a proud smile. Good to hear, the aged Hokage said before handing the scroll to the Jounin. Yamato looked at the scroll, and nodded before turning to his students. I will give you the night to prepare. It will take us 3 days to reach the bandit camp, so pack accordingly. Dismissed, he said, and watched with pride as they all disappeared to prepare. Sarutobi smiled. You have trained them well. I just hope they are ready, he commented. Yamato smiled softly. They work together now, and I have no doubt they are more than ready. Let's just hope that bandits are the only thing we encounter on this mission, he said before disappearing himself. Kumo Council Room, 5 p.m. same day. Yugito had just returned from her most recent mission, a full 2 days ahead of schedule. Another of her specialized missions that the council was trying to force on her. She completed the mission just like she had all the others, meaning she beat the guy so badly that he just gave her what she wanted without having to resort to debasing herself for the information. Yugito frowned as she thought of the council's recent actions. They had become very earnest in their attempts to turn her into a slut. The Raikage himself had warned her to not sleep alone, if she could help it, and she had taken the advice to heart. She often stayed at Killer Bee's or Samui's apartment. The past few months have been nerve-wracking. The council hadn't stopped putting in petitions and missions to get the feline female into their grasp, and she, or the Raikage, had thwarted them at every turn. Still, as she approached the council room after her latest mission, she couldn't help but feel that something was horribly wrong. Inside the room, the counselors most adamant about making the woman nothing more than their personal cum-bucket were in attendance, along with a very high-ranking squad of ANBU who happened to hate the Nibi for personal reasons. They were currently discussing their latest failed petition to have Yugito placed under a loyalty seal almost identical to that of the caged bird seal, except that this one would make her subservient and almost constantly horny, as a bonus. How can that oversized bull of a man deny our requests for a loyal slave? One fat lazy businessman by the name of Manabu Hinaki said loudly, as he took another swig of sake. Another man, this time slimmer, but with a very deceptive appearance, said he does not believe that the Nibi can influence Nissan. However, we all know the legends of the cat being a wonderful seductress, and I, for one, would love to find out just how limber the kitty cat is in bed. His tone becoming lecherous at the end. This man was Rikudo Iberia, who held a rather lofty position in the banking industry, and delighted in going to the whorehouses at least once a week, usually more. Yet another man with glasses and a law book in hand added, I too would enjoy knowing her limitations. She is said to deny any man her pleasures, and we all know that women are nothing more than tools for our recreation, he said with a smirk. This was Fumio Akihira, who owned most of the food stores in town. Bah, who cares about other women? I just want that cat bitch under my body moaning my name. When do we just ignore that idiotic Raikage and give her the seal anyway? The previous Raikage would have given her to us the first time we asked, Manabu said. Fumio shook his head. Soon, but you must be patient. We can only put the plan into action when she returns from her next mission, he said before turning to the leader of the ANBU, a snake-masked man. Is everything set? He asked. The ANBU nodded. Indeed, me and my team have set traps in her apartment to drug her. Once we have her, we will apply the seal and take her to Manabu-sama's estate. Once he is done with her, we shall ensure that her programming is complete before turning her over to you, he said. Although you couldn't see it, the 3 other ANBU were all smirking. They would love to get a piece of the feline bitch, especially since she wouldn't be able to fight against the seal. Rikudo smiled. That is our agreement, Song-san. You will also be free to enjoy her services anytime she is available in the future, he said, gaining a nod from the ANBU. Then it is settled. The entirety of the council is behind this movement, so do not fail us, he said. The team stiffened, but nodded, as one. In addition, if you are caught, we know nothing of this, he said dismissively, letting the team know they shouldn't fail, as the Raikage protected Yugito religiously. Yugito, who was outside the council chambers, nearly broke down crying, but settled for running away, and getting atop her apartment complex before collapsing, and crying her eyes out. Kitten, I know you probably don't want to hear this, but your best bet is to leave until those council members are gone, Nibi said in her head. Contrary to most Jinchuriki, the Nibi and Hachibi were sealed with their consent, and so their Jinchuriki were actually friends with said Bija. Needless to say, Nibi was Yugito's closest, and most trustworthy friend. Nibi-chan, they will just hunt me down, you know that, she replied mentally. Nibi sighed in Yugito's mindscape, perhaps kitten, but you will have a better chance out there than in here. People may trust B-san, but they are still wary of you because of those stupid necromancer rumors going around. 1. Yugito calmed down slightly, and thought it over. On one hand, she had very few friends, mostly Killer B, his students, and the Reikage himself, as everyone else pretty much barely tolerated her. On the other hand, her friends would be very sad if she left. What of my friends Nibi-chan? She asked. Nibi purred softly. I'm sure they would understand, kitten. If it is to protect your purity, they would understand. You know this, she replied. Yugito smiled softly, as she remembered many times where her friends protected her from the council. She shook her head free of those thoughts, and had 2 more. They may be sad, but they wouldn't have to fight the council so much anymore. Nibi-chan, where do I go if I leave? She asked Bijou. Nibi smirked in her mind. You remember I recently told you about a human who received an avatar mark, correct? She asked. Getting a mental nod from her container, she continued. As you know, the Shinigami is a good friend of mine, so I called him, and he told me who received the mark, she said. Nibi was silent for a minute, and Yugito grew frustrated. Quit keeping me in suspense, you damn cat. Who is it? She half yelled, getting a chuckle from her friend. Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, son of Konoha's Kiroi Senko, Minato Namikaze, and his wife the Akashinku, Kushina Uzumaki, container, and mate to Hikari, the Kyubi no Kitsune, avatar of Susanoo, she said, smirking at the sudden jaw drop of her container. Yugito came back to her senses when she heard Nibi's chuckle in her head. Well, that's one way to get my attention. After I gather my things, where to? She asked her tenant. Nibi smirked. Hook, line, and sinker, kitten. Just gather your things. I can direct you to Hikari's signature when we leave, Nibi said. Yugito smiled softly, and nodded in agreement before gathering her things. It was time to feel safe for once. Naruto's lab, 6:45 p.m. Naruto had decided to let Amaterasu have the house, along with the girls, to get ready for their date. Hikari had opted to help Amaterasu get ready for the date. Naruto dressed in a formal dark blue dress kimono with a small orange Uzumaki swirl over his left hoop pie, and a whirlwind with lightning striking around it on his back, the new Namikaze clan symbol. He kept his celestial features hidden though. He smirked, as he noticed the time, and thought, time to pick up my Megami Heim. He chuckled, as he disappeared. Thanks for watching my video, and make sure to check out the author of this fanfic. Link is in the description. See you next time. Till then, sayonara.